Welcome back to another episode. Today's topic is emotions. Everyone has emotions. How are you feeling right now? I wonder. Well, how are emotions important and why is it that we actually have them? And what's the big deal about emotions? So, if you're not already aware, emotions are the state of feeling. So, believe it or not, you're experiencing an emotion right now. Not sure what it is. Hopefully, it's a good one. But emotions, the state of feeling, that's essentially what drives us to do what we actually do. And speaking of driving, if you've heard my little analogy with cars and how the emotion that you experience is your gas pedal, that could not be more accurate. And the reason for that is that if you tend to have a lead foot, if you do drive, if you tend to have a lead foot, you probably tend to be fairly on the emotional side of things. But if you kind of have a light foot and do a lot more thinking before you make decisions, then you might be more intellectual as far as you kind of be on one side. You might be on one side of the spectrum or the other. And so the reason that that's important is, believe it or not, how you drive is actually a barometer for how you actually feel. So if you drive fast, you might be sort of high on emotion at that point, and if you kind of just go slow and relaxed, that emotion's kind of at a very low level. And believe it or not, that can change. You know, sometimes depending on how you're feeling, your driving is impacted as a result. So, curious, what's your normal when you actually drive? Do you tend to drive a little bit over that speed limit, way over the speed limit, at the speed limit, or a little bit under? And that can probably tell you how much emotion you actually have surging through those veins of yours. So why emotion? Like what's the big deal about that? Well, we have lots of different types of emotions. I actually looked it up online, and there are periodic tables of emotions the same way there are elements. And I think I saw 103, right? So that's a lot. That's a huge amount of emotions, right? So the real question is, where do you tend to fall? What types of emotions do you actually experience the most? And that might tell you essentially where you are and sort of, how you actually, let's say, not necessarily react, but how you take on new situations and what's your response to that, right? Now, usually when we talk about using your emotions, when you can either react or respond to an event or a situation. And usually when you react, you tend to be more on the emotional side because you don't have to think about it. You just execute straight off the bat. And usually when you're doing that, unless it's something that has been fine-tuned and that's, your response that you're going to do on a regular basis, it tends to be more emotional in nature. So usually when you're reacting on emotion, you're not really thinking as much as you are reacting. And as a result, you're not really thinking about, okay, what consequences could happen if I react this way or that. But when you respond, you tend to be a little bit slower. That's why we talked about the mind and intellectual response being something that pushes on those brakes instead of the gas, because you slow down and you can kind of take things at speed or at a slower speed so you can process everything. And so where do you actually fall? I know I looked up a little simpler metric for 6 core categories that kind of define that emotional spectrum before you go out to essentially the smaller branches. And I think this is pretty accurate. I saw peaceful, powerful, joyful, sad, mad, and scared. And scared I associate with, let's say, fear. So based on like those core categories, which one do you fall under? And I know in looking at myself, I think I tend to fall more on the joyful side and definitely on the creative piece right now, because usually anytime that I'm teaching, that's when I have a lot of ideas, and I love sharing those. But okay, if we know a little bit about what emotions are, the types of emotions we have, and again, you probably have a much bigger spectrum of emotions than what I'm even kind of presenting at this point. But again, we're just hitting on some core categories there. But what do we actually use emotions for? Like, why are emotions actually important? And believe it or not, you use emotions to make decisions. Again, that gas pedal, when you're moving, you're using that emotion to move you forward. And anytime you make decisions, there's actually 4 categories that everyone essentially can be measured upon, but everyone has like their favorite as far as like how they make decisions. So the 4 that I remember hearing from one of my mentors, Ty Lopez, were practical, action, social, and emotional. And so someone who's practical they're a thinker. They like to take all the information they possibly can in before they make any type of decision whatsoever. So they tend to be very slow, but they need all the details in order to make that decision. Then next you have action. And people who make decisions based off of action, they move quickly. They need to know, like, what's the bottom line? What will this give me? Can we move forward? Like, they don't waste any time. So if something looks good to them, they move forward quickly, right? And then you have social. The folks that make social decisions, they don't make decisions on their own. They need to essentially hear what other people are actually thinking about that very same decision. You know, how did other people actually make their decision? And like, what's the best thing out there? Well, what are other people doing? That's how they make their decisions. And so they feel very comfortable. They know that a lot of folks have done it before. They've gotten good results, and then that's good for them. And then last but not least, you have emotional. And emotional folks, actually, they're looking for that connection, that bond. They don't like making decisions unless they know that there's a really strong bond as far as, you know, if you're giving me this information and I trust you and, you know, that's how we're going to move forward, then we're good. But if I don't trust you, then it's like, it's no way, Jose, right? So emotional folks, they need to be tied in with a story, and there needs to be a strong connection there for them to make decisions. So question, I mean, which one do you fall under? Because if anything, if you understand how you make decisions, you can also make better decisions moving forward and figuring out what information do you need to make the best decision and not miss out on an opportunity. In addition to making decisions, emotions also allow us to survive, thrive, and avoid danger. Just like Spider-Man, we get that spidey sense that something is a threat to you, or your surroundings. You get a feeling, and that feeling isn't something that you want to push off because is very legitimate. There's something very real about that. So anytime you have a sense from your emotions that something might be off or this or that, that's your emotions actually telling you something that you just need to be aware of what the situation is around you. Emotions also allow you to take action. Again, the gas pedal, when you move forward, that's emotion driving you forward. All right. So that's why emotions are important. They actually move us forward, especially if we're working to get in line with our goals. And the last two would be emotions allow others to actually understand us and allows us to understand others. And the biggest thing with emotions is emotions provide feedback. So that feedback can tell someone that, hey, you made a meal today, for dinner, and it didn't taste too good. And that emotion might sort of look like this, right? Or you could say, oh, you know what? That food was delicious, and there's a big smile on your face, like, give me more, right? And that's feedback, right? That's letting someone else know that, oh, you know what? You made a great dinner tonight. I actually want a second helping, or, you know what? I think I've had enough, and I hope I don't get sick, right? So that's what emotion actually does. It provides feedback for us. Now, with all of that being said, the real question is, when you're driving, who's in the driver's seat? Is it you or is it your emotions? Now, believe it or not, those are two separate things because your emotions are either in control or your mind's in control. Remember, you either have your foot on that gas or you have your foot on the brake. And sometimes you need to be able to, determine which one makes the most sense at that point in time. And so when emotions are in control, that means that lead foot's not coming off the gas and you're just flying, right? And usually it can be very difficult to navigate situations when you're just going like 100, 200 miles an hour. So sometimes you actually have to slow down. And the mind kind of slows things down because it hits those brakes. So it's important for you to be in control of your emotions so that you can actually use them to your advantage. You don't always want to hit the gas. Sometimes it's important to hit the brakes, especially when you're going around a turn, right? So controlling emotions actually allows us to employ them in a beneficial way. So again, we want to use them to our advantage. They're also, believe it or not, critical to our success. There are a lot of folks out there that may believe that intellectual intelligence is the key for success. It is not. It is emotional intelligence. If you have the ability to control your emotions, you will get a lot farther in life than just with intellectual ability. And one book that I highly recommend, this is Emotional Intelligence by Travis Bradberry and Gene Greaves. And it actually has a really good test to actually see where you actually fall on a spectrum of emotional intelligence. Now, what emotional intelligence is, all it really says is just as there's intellectual intelligence with your mind, there's also emotional intelligence with how you actually control and use your emotions. And it'll actually give you a score and let you know where you actually want to build your strengths, where you need a little bit more work, right? So you can actually get better at executing against your emotional intelligence. And I actually had the opportunity to take the test. It has 4 categories within it. Those 4 categories are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And in taking that test, it'll give you a score for each of those categories, and then it'll give you a combined score. And I know in taking the test myself, I scored, low 80s. But what was really helpful is that it let me know that I was very high, the high 80s, in regards to self-awareness and self-management. But where I actually need the most work is social awareness and relationship management. And if you've heard any of my other talks, I definitely have some challenges within the relationship department, just for the fact that I need to get a better understanding and communicating what it is that I actually want, and understanding what other people actually want, or what their true intentions actually are. And so that's been a challenge for me, but that test hit everything right on the head. So I definitely encourage you to get tested in this area, just to get a better idea of where you actually fall. Again, feedback helps out a lot. Instead of you trying to figure it out, you can get a series of scores back to let you know where you need improvement and what you can actually do to improve. And ending with emotions, emotions are the #1 predictor of success and personal excellence. So emotions are that important. Don't necessarily think just because you don't have academic excellence that you're not going to be successful when it comes to life, because it's more about some of the things that they don't teach in school. And emotional intelligence, I believe, is one of those things that they teach at all. So if you want to improve and work on your emotional intelligence, I recommend Emotional Intelligence 2.0, the book. Take the test, figure out how you score, and no matter where you score, it's feedback. So improve on that. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson today on emotions, and look forward to catching you on the next one. Bye.